All right, what is up, everybody? This is Alex once again with the EOT News Flash, back for the green section of our Ravnica Allegiance Limited Set Review. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys, tonight is not a sprint, it is a marathon, because on the other side of these green cards are the gold cards, and there's so many of them. So if I am a little bit more deliberate in my delivery and take things a little bit slower tonight, I'm saving my voice for that. But the green cards are super exciting. A lot of these are very powerful, very exciting for limited. So I'm not going to waste any time getting right into things. As always, we have a 4-point skill to operate off of. Ones are the cards you should never play. Twos are the cards that are mostly going to be your filler. You know, most of your deck in draft and sealed will be made up of twos. Your threes are going to be more of your higher end uncommons and removal spells. And the fours are the absolute bombs that you will be playing, you know, most likely if you open up a pack and say, this is a great card in this color, I'm going to go for green, or you build your deck around it for sealed. We also have your build around cards and your sideboard cards as well, and I'll make sure I note those where necessary. But yeah, let's jump right into things here. First card we've got is Axebane Beast. This is a 3 green, 3/4 beast, and that's it. It's just that. This is fine filler, especially in green where your vanilla creatures are a little bit higher on the curve, but the trade-off obviously is more power and toughness. So this is a fine piece of curve filler if you need it. There are obviously better fours in this set, so definitely keep your eye for those. But I won't be embarrassed to play this because 4 toughness is a lot to get through in this format. So Axebane Beast gets a solid 2 from me. Decent filler, but not much else. Next card, on the other hand, Biogenic Ooze, 3 green Ooze, mythic rare 2/2. As it enters the battlefield, create a 2/2 green Ooze creature token. At the beginning of your instant, put a +1/+1 counter on each Ooze you control, and you can pay 1 green and create a 2/2 Ooze creature token. God. This thing is absurd. Like, this thing demands an answer instantly. Like, they can scourge mark it, you know, with the trigger on the stack, but God, if they can't kill it the first go around, this thing just gets completely out of control. An absolute 4, first pick, absolute auto include in your sealed pools. I don't care if you're, whatever else is in your color in green, you play this thing. It just gets completely out of control and really nicely illustrates one of the strengths that green has in the set, that being lots of good mana sinks. So the later the game goes, all that mana you have lying around is actually really beneficial because you can just keep pumping mana into so many of your creatures here. So solid 4 for me. This card is absolutely insane. Next, we have Biogenic Upgrade. 4 green at a sorcery uncommon. Lets you distribute 3 +1/+1 counters amongst 1, 2, or 3 target creatures, then double the number of +1/+1 counters on each of those creatures. So this is like your big setup swing turn. So this card is just unreal. Just how powerful it is. And obviously, I think you want to have at least 3 creatures to put this on. Otherwise, it's less impactful. But so many of the creatures care about having +1/+1 counters in green. This is just a really powerful card and demands that answer for all of the creatures that you put on from your opponent. So really powerful. I gave it a 2.5. I think I want to see this one play out first. Before I can give this like a definitive rating here. I definitely think that the green decks are going to have their spell slots are going to be more precious than the blue, the black, and the white decks here. So I think you've really got to pick and choose your non-creature spells when you're in a green guild, and I think this is going to be a higher pick for them, but there's definitely a lot of contention for that spot. Next up, we have the End Raise Forerunners. 5 green. Boar at rare. It's a 7/7. Vigilance, Trample, and Haste. When it enters the battlefield, other creatures you control get +2/+2 and gain Vigilance and Trample until the end of turn. This ends games. Just flat out. 8 mana and you end the game. There's not, Root Snare is in this set, and that's about it. Nothing else can stop what you're about to do when you cast this card. So, yeah. This thing's insane. I give it a 3.5. Obviously, this thing is really powerful. It's not quite a 4 just because it costs so much damn mana, but there are plenty of ways to accelerate in green. So I think this card's really powerful and definitely one you want to be able to walk out for. Even if you kill it, those creatures are still getting bigger and they're still going to hit you. So this is a hard card to beat. I definitely think this is going to be a game-ending bomb a lot of times. Next up, we've got Enraged Ceratok. 2 green, 4/4 uncommon Rhino. Cannot be blocked by creatures with 2 power or less. Nice. This is a 2.75 for me. I got a little weird with a lot of the green creatures here because they are so close in power level. So I threw in a couple of these 7/5s and 2/5s. I like this card quite a bit. 4 mana for the power and toughness is quite on curve where you want to be in a green deck. Like I mentioned, the curve is a little bit higher, but the return is also greater. And this ability lets you get past so many things. There's not a lot of creatures that have more than 3 power in a lot of the other non-green guilds. So this is an absolute powerhouse against those smaller aggressive decks, and it will absolutely put the brakes on their onslaught while you just turn this thing sideways. Really powerful card. Give it a 2.75. Next up, we have Gatebreaker Ram. 2 and a green sheep. Uncommon 2/2 that gets +1/+1 for each gate you control, and as long as you have control 2 or more gates, it gains Vigilance and Trample. So in a gate deck, which obviously if you're playing green, you do have more access to gate searching effects, which are really powerful. So this thing can get a lot bigger very, very quickly. The power and toughness is already on point for the mana cost, so this card's really powerful. 2.5 for me. Any number of gates that you can play if you're in green, if you can go, obviously 2 colors base, and then maybe you dip into a 3rd or a 4th color. Really powerful stuff here. So Ram gets really big, really fast, very powerful. Next up, we have Gift of Strength. 1 and a green instant at common. Target creature gets +3/+3 and gains reach until the end of turn. This is a really solid combat trick that we've seen, a million times before, and we'll see a million times to come. I do like the fact that it gives the creature reach. One of the things that Wizards has really been pushing, especially in green, are, ways that it can defend itself against its natural enemy. Flyers, Crushing Canopy and Guilds of Ravnica turned out to be an actual main deckable card, especially in best of 1 draft games on Magic Arena, because things like Niv Mizzet were absolute dominating forces enough in Limited, and so Green decks had to have a way to beat that card, and I think this is another good indication that they're aware that they need to have flexible answers across, the spectrum, especially in green. So this card's really powerful. Gave it a 2.25. Combat tricks are always good, but you're always going to be watching out for the fact that they might just bounce it in response or kill it in response. Next up, we've got Growth Chamber Guardian. 1 and a green 2/2 elf crab warrior. Sure. At rare, you can adapt for 2 and a green. Now, adapt is a brand new Simic mechanic that allows you to put a +1/+1 counter on it once you activate its adaptability. So this one will put 2 +1/+1 counters on it for the activated ability, and that is instant speed as well. This is a really powerful card for constructed standard. And obviously has more text on it. Whenever 1 or more +1/+1 counters are put on Growth Chamber Guardian, you may search your library for a card named Growth Chamber Guardian, reveal it, put it in your hand, and then shuffle your library. So the only problem with this guy is that if we're limited, you're not going to have more than 1 most of the time. So he's really just a 5 mana 4/4, which is plenty good, but just pretty decent filler in my book, all things considered for limited specifically. So I gave the Growth Chamber Guardian a 2.25. Good filler, but not all that beneficial outside of standard. Next up, we have Gruul Beastmaster. 3 to green, uncommon human shaman 2/2 with Riot that lets you choose the creature to come into play with haste or a +1/+1 counter. Now, whenever Gruul Beastmaster attacks, another target creature you control gets +X+0 until the end of turn, where X is Gruul Beastmaster's power. So this thing is already, handing out an extra 2 power, just flat. 3, it's even better. If you have any pump spells or ways to put counters on this bad girl, that makes whatever's attacking with her even better. So the Beastmaster I like quite a bit. Solid filler. The mana cost is a little bit of a hindrance in my opinion, but this is still a really good card to play in your aggressive green and red decks. Maybe a little bit in green and blue, but I like it a little bit more green and red. Obviously, it is a Gruul card. So I gave the Guardian, or no, the Beastmaster here, this is a 2.25 for me. Next up, we have the Guardian Project, and I'm pretty sure that's Abin Sur from Green Lantern, but that's neither here nor there. 3 and a green enchantment at rare. Whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it doesn't have the same name as another creature you control or a creature in your graveyard, draw a card. So this card is really interesting. Obviously, it demands to be kind of built around because you don't want to have too many multiples of certain cards in your deck. Most often, you're not going to have that many anyway, just because it's limited. The chance of having multiples of things beyond commons is actually quite low. So this is actually going to have quite an effect on a game of limited, I think. Give it a 2.5. It is, obviously a turn 4 play that doesn't do anything, but every turn thereafter, more than likely, you're going to, have a cascading effect as you draw more cards. Obviously, you have to have something in play, otherwise it won't actually trigger or anything. Actually, if you have things in the graveyard, so yeah, it's still pretty powerful. So 2.5 for me, a very powerful engine indeed. Next up, we have Incubation Druid, 1 and a green for a Elf Druid at rare, 0/2, and then you can tap it to add 1 mana of any type that a land you could produce, and if it has a +1/+1 counter on it, you add 3 instead. So it turns into a repeatable Black Lotus effect. This is insane. And it also has Adapt 3 for 3 green. So it even has its own ability to make itself add Black Lotus mana here effectively, which is just, this card is so powerful. This is a solid 3 for me. It is a bit weak on its face, but this is the Simic Combine. Counters are going everywhere. I guarantee you more than likely you will not, if this comes into play, at some point you will be Black Lotusing every single turn. That's super powerful. Solid 3 for me. Next up, we have Mammoth Spider, 4 and a green, 3/5, common spider with reach. I've already talked a little bit about these before. So Wishcoin Crab and Dowser of Light, whichever one was black, and it was a 4/5 in Guilds of Ravnica, the 4/5 for 5. Very much in the same vein. These vanilla creatures that have a big old butt and a lot of power as well are really good for grinding out games, and Mammoth Spider is no different here. If you're playing against a deck who has a bunch of flyers, this will absolutely dominate that game. I give Mammoth Spider a 3 here. I know that's kind of ridiculous. This is a common we're talking about. But if this card plays the same as Wishcoin Crab and Devourer of Light did and limited for Guilds of Ravnica, super powerful and definitely one you need to be aware of. Moving right along, we've got Open the Gates. This is our common land search in this set. So we have Open the Gates, a single green sorcery at common. Search your library for a basic land card or a gate card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. Unfortunately, we don't have any way to put them into play automatically by casting a spell, so this is the best we've got in this set. And I think Wizards learned their lesson because the ability to do that in Guilds of Ravnica was quite good. So, Open the Gates is a really powerful card here. I like it quite a bit. If you're playing, base green, obviously, if you're playing 3+ colors, you absolutely want to have this. If you're just sticking to 2, if you're just playing like Gruul or Simic, probably not all that beneficial for you. But if you've got cards that want you to play with gates, especially off-color gates for things like the Burning Gates, the Board Wipe in red, or the Sheep in this in green here, definitely a card you want to keep an eye out for, and one that I might not take too highly in draft, but as soon as I've kind of started slanting my way into a 3rd color or 4th color, or if my pool just allows for it in limited, I'll definitely be more inclined to pick up Open the Gates. They gave this one a 2, and also sort of a build around me card. Next up, we have Rampage of the Clans, 3 and a green instant. At rare, destroy all artifacts and enchantments. For each permanent destroyed this way, its controller creates a 3/3 and green centaur token. I give this a flat 0. There's a handful of enchantments in this set that are worth blowing up, but not enough. The number of artifacts in this set that are worth blowing up, not enough. It's just such a low impact card. This is obviously much more designed for the the commander crowd out there who needs effects like this. We're obviously seeing some kind of a story moment where the Gruul clan's just like, yo, wreck the city or whatever. But yeah, it's not playable unlimited. I wouldn't worry about this card at all. Next up, we have Rampaging Rendhorn. 4 and a green for a 4/4 with Riot. It's a beast at common. This card's actually surprisingly good. This is a 2/5. All right, I gave it a 2.5. Just because you're in green, you're going to be able to accelerate relatively easily. There's a lot of common mana accelerators in green here that enough so that a 5-drop is nothing to really worry about. It's relatively high on the curve, but it could be played as early as turn 4, maybe even turn 3 in some cases. But just the ability to have a 5 mana 5/5 or just the 4 with haste is so powerful, so flexible. These Riot cards are excellent top decks at any point in the game, and just makes me really think that green is really pushed in this set to be a really powerful limited color to be in. So I gave the Rampaging Rendhorn a 2.5. Card's really powerful. Next up, we have Regenesis. 3 green instant uncommon. Return up to 2 target permanent cards from your graveyard to your hand. So this is a regrowth effect, just be a little bit more restrictive because it only hits permanents instead of any card. This card is really powerful, I think. Obviously you want a way to have some sort of recursion in green, especially, if you're playing against an opponent who has a lot of removal and takes up your bigger bombs. Using this card to get those back is just a really great way to keep the game going, and making your opponent have to recommit resources to kill the same creature over and over. So I give Regenesis a 2.5. Again, this is going to be one of those non-creature green spells that's really competing for those precious slots as you fill most of your deck with a bunch of creatures. So definitely one to keep an eye out for because it's a very, very powerful effect. Next up, we have Root Snare, the only way to survive an attack by the End-Raze Forerunners. 1 and a green instant at common, prevent all combat damage to be dealt this turn. Obviously, this slots right into the Turbo Fog deck that's going to be apparently just ruining Standard for the next 6 months. Thanks, what is that card called? Temporal Master? No, the Time Walk one. I wonder what it's called. I forget. You can tell how much Standard I actually play. Yeah, this is a sideboard card, plain and simple, for limited. If your opponent's playing a super aggressive aggro deck and you need a way to stem the bleeding, for a turn just so you can, turn the corner and kill them, by all means bring it in. But it's certainly not something I'm going to be playing main deck in limited. Next up, we have Sagittar's Volley. 2 and a green common instant, destroy target creature with flying and deal 1 damage to each creature with flying your opponent's control. Again, this is another sideboard card. This is another example of Wizards being cognizant of ways to destroy flying creatures. They have things like Plummet, Crushing Canopies, cards that we need like this to be limited. This is bread and butter right here. I'm blanking on the name of the card, but the art is a direct reference to a card from Gatecrash. It's a Drake of some kind, and it was a really good card too. It's cool to see that art come back here. But anyway, sideboard card only. Next up, we have Ceruli Caretaker, a single green Dryad at common, 0/3 defender, and you can tap it and tap an untapped creature you control and add 1 mana of any color. So it's a little bit restrictive in what it's able to do in terms of an acceleration, but still quite a powerful effect, especially when you do want to be casting things that cost 8 mana or dumping a ton of mana into your adapt creatures. So I give the Caretaker here a 2. The body's actually relatively decent to block early creatures. I do like the fact that we don't have to worry about Mentor kind of ruining these walls that would eventually just become blanked, even though they had 4 toughness to them. So this is a solid curve filler here, and definitely a strong early game play to get you to some of those bigger creatures like Rampaging Rendhorn, like End-Raze Forerunners. Next up, we have Sauroform Hybrid. The art on this is just so wild to me, to see that the Simic are using humans now in their bioengineering. For 1 and a green, you get a 2/2 Human Lizard Warrior at common, and it adapts 4 for 4 green greens. You get 4 +1/+1 counters on it. So this card's surprisingly good, and it's a good mana sink, which elevates it just enough above a 2 for me. So if I'm looking at just a generic vanilla 2/2, I will always play the hybrid over that. So good curve filler, and again highlights that good mana sink aspect of green cards for limited. Next up is a card that kind of infuriates me, and I'm just so confused as to why they designed it like this. But this is Silhana Wayfinder, 1 in a green, Elf Scout, an uncommon. It's a 2/1. As it enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a creature or land card from among them and put it on top of your library and the rest on your bottom of your library in a random order. Typically, effects like this, I'm blanking on the one from Guilds that looked for a creature, a land, or an enchantment. Sylvana, I forget, but it's 2 blue, 2 green, white for a 2/1. And the fact that this puts us on top of your library is just so strange. I feel like this should be just putting it into your hand, make it 1 extra mana, do something. But this is just a really unimpressive card to me. Obviously it's a bear, and just the text on it elevates it again, much like the Soulform hybrid. It just elevates it just enough above just bottom of the barrel filler to be actually playable, and it kind of draws you half a card, so it's still not very impressive to me. And putting cards that you need in the bottom of your library that you absolutely want to draw like a removal spell, even worse. So not impressive at all, honestly. Next up we have the Steeple Creeper. Steeple Creeper. Frog Snake, whatever. It is a 2 in a green common Frog Snake, 4/2, and you can pay 3 in a green to give it flying until the end of turn. Again, highlighting good mana sinks for limited play, but unfortunately having 2 toughness just makes this thing such a liability to attack into anything, and it doesn't block very well. It'll usually, when it attacks, it's going to trade down. When it blocks, it might trade up, but it just sits in this really awkward spot on the curve, to have the power toughness that it does. So the Simic Combine isn't all that aggressive, which is where I think this card wants to be, so I'm not super inclined to play this one. It's a 2.25 for me. Again, that activated ability elevates it just enough above basic filler for me. Next up we have Stony Strength, a single green mana at instant common to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, and you untap that creature. That's good. That's icing right there. This could have just said put a +1/+1 counter on it, but to untap it as well, absolutely unreal. 2.5 for me. It's a great combat trick. It's a great way to enable all of the creatures that require +1/+1 counters to become bigger and better. This card's really awesome and a really, really deceptive common. This is going to wheel at your draft tables, and I think as long as you've got the spots for it and the creatures who want the counters, definitely grab these, and you'll be really happy with them as well. Next up we have Sylvan Brush Strider, 2 in a green beast at common, 3/2. As it enters the battlefield, gain 2 life. Simple, clean. Again, not super impressed by cards like this. We've seen a bunch of 3/2s for 3 in this set already so far. And just the fact that they're in that really awkward spot where they'll trade down just about everything, and they're not quite to the level of like Steeple Creeper, where it's going to trade up with a much bigger creature. 3/2 is just a really underwhelming stat to be in this set, and I think if you are aware of that and look to cards like this to fill out your deck, you're going to be really disappointed with just how poorly they play out. So I gave the Brush Rider a 2 here. It's pretty much just generic filler, and the 2 life is basically completely irrelevant at this point. Next up we have Territorial Boar. This is a 1 in a green boar, common, 2/2. Whenever another creature with power 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +1/+1 and vigil until the end of turn. I'm not a big fan of the fact that I have to play the creature, main phase before I attack, to basically, I'm no longer bluffing that I might be holding up a pump spell or a combat trick. So this one's pretty underwhelming, just having more text and, more, application on the battlefield makes me a little bit more inclined to play this one. It obviously is a bear, which is, perfectly playable, limited, but beyond that, it's just a 2.25 for me, barely above, bottom of the barrel again. Lots of green cards have, hitting that sweet spot, but so many of the green cards are just really powerful at the same time. So they're in a weird kind of space right now, I think. Next up, we have Titanic Brawl. 1 and a green instant at common. Costs 1 less to cast if the target you creature, if the creature you target has a +1/+1 counter on it, so it becomes 1, a single green, and then you fight target creature you don't control with the creature that you do control. Fight's a very powerful mechanic, especially at instant speed. Wow. Go to blocks, fight this, and then go to it's such a powerful ability here. And this is definitely going to be a really powerful trick. But again, you definitely want to make sure that you're, keeping your spell slots to a relative minimum in these green decks. So I don't know if this is going to be better than like Gift of Strength or some of the better uncommon and gold pump spells in some cases. But this is still a pretty good one here. 2.25 for me. Next up, we have Tower Defense. 1 and a green, instant at uncommon. Creatures you control get +0/+5 and gain reach until the end of turn. So this is a really powerful sideboard card against the deck that has all the Sphinxes, all of the Spirits, all the other flyers in the set, and they just try to go in for like an Alpha Strike, and you just basically wipe them out. Unfortunately, it doesn't untap the creatures, which I think would be a little bit cooler, but might push this to be a little bit more expensive on the curve. But definitely a cool sideboard card, possibly even main deckable in draft if you've got the read on the table and realize that your people around you are drafting a heavy decks full of flyers. Next up, we have Trollbred Guardian. 4 and a green, Troll Frog Warrior, uncommon, 5/5. Adapts for 2 and a green. Adapts 2 for 2 and a green, and each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has trample. This thing is capable of ending games by itself. We had the green elemental that counts the +1/+1 counters on all your creatures, and your opponent can't block with your creatures with power less than that. And this is like right up there. It's a great curve topper, and just the ability to turn all your creatures sideways and basically say, I hope you can do something because they all have +1/+1 counters on it. Most likely, you're gonna take a ton of damage here. Like Simic, just absurd what they can do. When the board gets kind of stalled out like most games of Limited tend to do. This is going to be a card that just punches through the last few points of damage, and just card's awesome. Card is flat out awesome. And once we get to the gold cards, we're going to see just how powerful all those +1/+1 counter synergies are, and really see the strength of the guild come together, I think. So our last 2 green cards. First up, we have Wilderness Reclamation. Nexus of Fate, that's what it's called, because this card is stupid with Nexus of Fate. 3 and a green enchantment, uncommon. At the beginning of your end step, untap all lands you control. So this is definitely a build around me card for Limited. I think it's going to be best at its best in a Simic deck, because you have the ability to untap all of your lands after you've cast a bunch of spells, and have the ability to start adapting on your opponent's end step, or just casting tempo spells, and really kind of keeping the game stabilized. If you're not in a Simic deck and you don't have a lot of instant speed spells, this really isn't worth it. So like I said, definitely a build around me card. But once it's in that deck, like most build around cards want to be, it's going to be one of the keystones of your deck, and really, really powerful once it goes online. And our last green card before we move into the behemoth that is gold cards in this set, we have Wrecking Beast. 5 green, Beast at common, 6/6 with Riot and Trample. I gave the Wrecking Beast here a 2.25. It's a great curve topper if you're scrounging for playables, or you didn't get like a big bomb to top your curve off. And just being a 6/6 is so huge in this set. Again, all these Riot cards are great top decks, so late game, the board's empty. Whoops, 7 mana, take 6. Really, really powerful effects here. So the only downside to it is that it is 7 mana, but if that's the only thing against it, this is still a really powerful card, and a great way to finish a game if, like I said, you don't have a good game-ending bomb here. So that's the green cards. I'm glad you guys are sticking around for it, because the next video is just going to be absurd, because all of the gold cards, we're going to be looking at all of them, and they're all just ridiculous. All the split cards, the gold cards. Also going to review the artifacts and the lands, just because those are just easy to kind of clump in there. And there's so few of them, so I just kind of toss them in there. But you've made it this far, you might as well stick around for the grand finale of all finales, the showstopper. It's going to be a Riot. These are great jokes. You're welcome. So, as always, I'm going to say it. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe because it lets you see videos and stay updated on things that we're doing here at the channel. Let me know what you guys are already excited to play with at the pre-release. What are you excited to open? What commanders are you going to be building out of this set? Let me know all of your crazy ideas because, the conversation is always much, much better when I'm not just talking to myself. So let's get that conversation going, everybody. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. If you haven't already, go and check out all the other videos. The white, the blue, the black, and the red cards are up already. Everything else is going up tonight. The pre-release is this weekend. I'm so excited. I'm so excited. We have to stop right now just so I can get to the next set of the cards. So let's go, and I'll see you guys very soon. Thank you for watching.